We are almost in the end of this year of 2022, which also means that we are in the best time of the year for releases, mainly in the gaming industry. And some of them are the most weighted of this entire year. Hi, I'm Lucas Highland, and in this video we are gonna talk about some of the releases of this month, November of 2022, in the gaming industry, of course. Remember, this is not a complete list of all the games that's gonna be released in this month, it's just a small list of the games that I think that are the most relevant ones. This list will be in no specific order, and let's just get started. The first one is Return to Monkey Island. It is an adventure point-and-click game with a retro style of gameplay, but with modern days technology that can easily fool our perception with stunning visuals that are closer to a very well-designed cartoon TV show than what we are used to in video games. Solving puzzles and following the story that seems to be rich and filled with interesting dialogues that change depending on the context of the game. I'm not sure what to expect from this game since I'm a slow reader, which is a big problem for me whenever I'm reading these scripts. You can't imagine the nightmare that is editing these videos with lots and lots of wrong takes. As I am a slow reader, for me, I hope there are voice acting to all the dialogues, because it will be very frustrating for me if this game turns out to be a text adventure. Because to me, the story seems to be very interesting. The visuals got me from the first second, and I really hope I can experience the atmosphere we were able to feel in the trailers without having to read a full book every 2 hours of gameplay. This game is going to be available to the Nintendo Switch, PS5, Xbox Series, Windows, Linux, and wait for it, Mac too. So yeah, it's going to be almost everywhere. Maybe in the future they even make a port for your smart fridge. Although I was not able to find any mentions about a PS4 version so far. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing something and they actually mentioned a version for the PS4, because I wasn't able to find it. Next! God of War Ragnarok. It is a sequel from the 2018 game God of War with this cover. Sorry, wrong game cover. It's a sequel to this one because this one already have a sequel. Oh god. 2 games with the same title can be very confusing sometimes. A game that's probably one of the most weighted games in the year, together with another one that I'm gonna mention further in this video. The adventure of Kratos and Atreus will take different proportions now that the end of the world is a clear possibility. In this game we will deal with a new level of interactions between father and son, now that Atreus is a teenager and is starting to get those common disagreements with his father. That, just to make sure, if you know nothing about the previous game, which I doubt, is Kratos. The adventure is gonna be set in the 9 Norse realms, and I already have a full video talking about what you can expect from this game in the card above. Beware, there are a few misinformations in the video, but nothing too serious. This game is gonna have excellent graphics and probably is gonna be a good buy game for the PS4. I don't believe that Sony is gonna keep bringing these heavyweight titles for the PS4 once the PS5 is already in the market since 2020, almost 2 years ago. So one day, sooner or later, Sony will stop to produce games for the past generation. And I believe this is one of the last ones. The fact that this game is also going to be ported for the past generation, the PS4, it will probably not represent the full capabilities of the PS5, because as we already know, when the game is ported for multiple generations, normally they need to have an extra layer of care to make sure it will run well in a less capable hardware. But I can and probably am wrong if we take the example of Horizon Forbidden West, that has impressive graphics and 100% next gen, even though it was also available for the PS4. Look at this moss! I literally stayed more than 5 minutes only contemplating this impressive realism. People with early access to this game are saying sunshines and rainbows about this title. Let's hope it's not an overreaction, because from what we saw so far, from the interesting storyline to the absurd variety in location, looks and vibe, as well as the variety of creatures, well, it seems to have all it takes to be a huge contender to Game of the Year, a huge commercial success, and it's also a game that has big chances of leaving its mark on the 9th generation of gaming consoles, like one of those unforgettable games whenever someone talks about the PS5 and the current generation. God of War Ragnarok is coming on November 9th, exclusive for the PS4 and PS5. From what I researched, there is still no mentions of a PC version, but once it happened with the previous game, I have reasons to believe somewhere in the future they can also release it on the PC. Next! But before we move on, I want to share some statistics with you. Apparently, 98.7% of my viewers are not subscribed. Only 8.3% are female and 0% are between the ages of 55 and 64. So if you are a lady with 55 years old or more, I would love to have you as a subscriber in my YouTube channel. But if you are not a 55 years old or more lady, subscribe anyway. You won't regret it. I bring new videos like this about the video game industry every single week, sometimes even more than one. Now back to the video. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is probably gonna be a good game, although I have my concerns about it. They took lots of things that worked from Legends Arceus, the last game in the franchise, and also lots of standard systems that also worked in the previous games. I know that Legends Arceus is like a prequel to all the Pokemon games. It's not a main release of the year, but you know what I mean. The previous one was Sword and Shield, and they also inspired in lots of systems inside of the Sword and Shield games too. I would love to see the Pokemon franchise taking a leap of faith and going all in innovative systems. But instead, it seems they are just wetting their feet. The game will have a considerable amount of interesting systems that you can know all about in this video I made before. Right here in this card on the top. My biggest concern about this game is that in the previous releases in the Pokemon franchise, they seem to moving more and more towards the younger generations, and forgetting that the people who were kids when they released their first games are already full-grown adults, probably. Most of the new Pokemon seem to be aiming for a more childish and cute look, as well as many systems inside of this game, as the one where you just have a picnic with your Pokemon, where you can make them sandwiches and give them bath, cleaning them. To me, it seems that it's almost a Tamagotchi kind of thing. I know that many people like this, but if they invested in interactions with your Pokemon that are more interesting than just having those childish things, I think that the older players like myself would enjoy to be able to have other kinds of interactions with your Pokemon, and I'm not saying anything in the dirty way. But also the looks on this new game, it seems to be pointing to a very childish style. You can see how small details can make it look completely different in terms of what is made for adults and what is made for teenagers and what's made for kids. And if we compare the same system like Breath of the Wild, and I know that you are tired of hearing comparisons in the graphics between Pokemon and Breath of the Wild, but as you can see, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is kind of cartoonish because with the Nintendo Switch system you cannot reach extreme realism as we can in the PS5, PC and so on, but it is still a game that looks like it's made for young adults and teenagers instead of making something that's specifically made for kids that is almost feeling the cringe level of an adult playing a game that looks like the new Pokemon games are looking. So overall, it seems that they are adding lots of new things, but without putting in the game what the real fans wanted. But I guess this is what happens when we are talking about the biggest franchise of absolutely anything. They avoid to make changes because failing is too expensive for them, and it's kind of understandable. But what I expect from this game is a demonstration of the direction this franchise is gonna take, and it will also help us to understand whether or not the game we all have been waiting for will someday see the day of light. I really hope it does. So let's see if with this new November release they will get us hyped with something that we all already know that's for sure gonna happen next year unless the world ends with the wars and so on. That is a new Pokemon game that's going to come out for sure. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet will be released in the November 18th as two separate games exclusive for the Nintendo Switch. Next game, and don't go out of this video already because the last game in this list is gonna blow your mind. That's really what's gonna happen, yeah. Well, now I wanted to mention a game that's very special for me because it's probably the first video game I ever played in my life. Sonic, with the new title, Sonic Frontiers. I don't want to talk too much about this one because I'm probably not gonna play it, but I wanted to find a video to put some of my considerations about this game, and this one seemed to be the perfect fit, once I don't want to make a full video about this one. When I was a child, Sonic used to be the main competitor to the Italian plumber Mario. And it's very interesting to see how the two games evolved in very different directions, and how till this day Mario is still a success and make huge hits every time a new game comes out, making excellent games and literally being a reference of how games should evolve and how to make a successful game. The Super Mario and Sonic franchises came from the same era of the video games, where realism or anything close to it was literally decades away. A long time they needed to evolve the graphics of Super Mario, because otherwise the public would lose interest in the franchise very quickly. And just look to how the game evolved. Until this day, it has excellent graphics, but they were able to maintain an exclusive visual that seems to fit perfectly together with the evolution of the graphics too. All this to point out how weird the new Sonic game is. The visuals everywhere are very realistic, but then we look to the character and it seems clearly off. Look at this example. It seems like the new Sonic game is a Crisis mod, where they replaced the main character by a 3D model of Sonic. It doesn't fit well at all. It seems out of place. And just looking to the gameplay already took all my interest about this game away. Can you imagine what would happen to the Super Mario franchise if instead of taking all this cohesive communication inside of the world, all the fantastic things and funny things inside of the game in terms of visuals, and replaced it by ultra realistic stuff like what's happening in Sonic? Can you imagine what would be the franchise nowadays? Probably a huge failure. I know that overall the Sonic franchise sells very well, but I think it is due to nostalgia, because as you already know, we just talked about Pokemon. Nostalgia is probably the most powerful thing in a game. This is why in the past few years they are releasing hundreds of remakes and remasters of old games, just because touching in the nostalgia is probably one of the most profitable things. This is what I have been doing. My best performing video so far was one about God of War and another one about Hogwarts Legacy. So yeah, I'm using nostalgia in my favor, and they are also using nostalgia in their favor to sell more Pokemon games and more. Also Super Mario, but Sonic too, because in this case, Super Mario, I think that they took a very good direction and Sonic did not, and it's only selling based on nostalgia instead of a good game. I'm really sorry if you are a fan of Sonic, but this is what I mean every time I say that graphics will kill the video game industry. This was literally the first video on my channel. I mean, not only it will, but it is already killing it, because from what we can see in Sonic, with this approach will never be a viable competitor for Super Mario again as it used to be. Sonic Frontiers will be released in the November 8th for the PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. Also lots of platforms. And finally, the absolute best and most weighted game of this month. No, this year, and it has 100% chances of winning the Game of Year award. It's not God of War, it's not Elden Ring, it's not Pokemon, it's this game that I'm gonna mention. Just Dance 2023. What? At least this game is gonna help you to lose some fat. Fat you're gonna gain if you only play God of War and Pokemon and Elden Ring, that are games that don't help you to move your body. And also exercise will give you some extra time of life, some extra years, and I want you to be alive, because dead people don't watch YouTube videos. Alright, I'm sorry for this last one. But what do you want? I was just researching about the new games that's gonna come out in November, and I felt the necessity of talking about it since I'm literally the worst dancer in the world. And maybe if I included this in my video, I would incentivize my future self to improve my dancing skills. That's probably not gonna happen. I know that you probably don't care, but as I did this with the previous games I mentioned before, it would be unfair not to do the same with this one. Just Dance 2022 is coming out on the 22nd of November. And that will be all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what is your November release that you are most excited about. Let's make a war in the comments to see what is the most weighted game of this month. God of War Ragnarok or a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. What do you think would happen if Kratos fighted Sprigatito? I don't want to think about it. And also let me know in the comments if you are excited about a November release that I didn't mention in this video. I'm Lucas Highland and thank you for watching. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. I always forget to ask you to ring the bell. I bring new videos like this every single week. If you have nothing better to do, watch these other videos that YouTube is suggesting you. Once again, thank you and see you in the next video. Dynamite.